Hello everybody and welcome to the Hospitality Maverick podcast with me, Michael Tingser. We at Hospitality Mavericks are here to inspire leaders and entrepreneurs in the hospitality industry to create heart-centered and profitable businesses from the inside out, the kind that both employees and customers love and support. In today's podcast, we're joined by industry maverick Karl Jones, the owner and managing director of Moshimo, the award-winning sustainable and ethical Japanese restaurant in the heart of Brighton. We had a great time with having Karl on our podcast, and we enjoyed discussing where he sees the industry going and much more, and the conversation was so great that we actually forgot all about time. So therefore we have made a special 2-episode session with Karl to ensure that you get all the great nuggets. In the first episode you will hear all about Karl's story, background in hospitality, what Moshimo is all about, sustainable sourcing, and all about their work with Fishlove. So get that coffee and tune in to a very special podcast. Welcome to the Hospitality Maverick podcast, Karl Jones.
Thank you, Michael.
And we have you here today because you are the MD of Moshimo here in Brighton, a very well-known restaurant down here, and we're going to hear a lot of great stuff today, I'm sure, about what you're up to and what you're doing.
Let's hope so.
So let's get started about, maybe you tell a bit about your background, your story, and how you ended up in Brighton and with a sushi restaurant.
So my role was in acquisitions for restaurants with a much bigger company, and I was offered to join what was then the Moshi Group, which had 3 or 4 restaurants. I really liked working for the company, and I particularly liked the Moshi restaurant in Brighton. And I offered the owners a price to buy it, and they said yes. And it's all from there, really. So I didn't actually set the restaurant up originally. I bought it and changed quite a lot to do with it, along with my business partner.
So your background is from corporate hospitality, or
both. I've done the whole thing from start to finish. So started as a waiter, manager, ops director, area manager, the whole thing, and then finished basically in acquisitions, which is pretty thankless, really. It's a grand role of an estate agent with an eye on the high street and where you think you're going to be able to have great outlets for food.
So can you name drop any of the company you work for? Is that a secret that people can find out themselves if they do a bit of research?
No, I worked for Grand Met for a long time. I also worked. I was quite involved in harvesters and brewers fairs, which had their place at the time. I don't know now so much. I think there was a bit of a stigma attached in the late 90s with I suppose what would be seen as cheap family dining. They got slightly out of hand. There was one on every corner, and they were led by voucher payments and that sort of scenario. So basically they were a lot about driving footfall and not really about good food. But I think they had their place, they had their time.
So coming to Brighton and then deciding on buying your own restaurant and running that, what was that made you feel, I want to go out on my own?
I suppose, like everyone else who becomes an owner, the first thing you're thinking about is working for yourself and perhaps doing less hours, perhaps having a less hectic life. All of that goes out the window on the first day. I think I was probably working somewhere in the 80-hour pluses per week. I'm probably now only in the 70-hour pluses per week. But I think it is nice if you have some knowledge and you've digested some stuff about the industry. I think it is nice eventually working for yourself, and it's not about calling the shots or anything else, but it's just about putting all that hard work and experience that you have into something that you see the results from. Even if the results are not amazing, at least you're seeing your own results. And I think the good thing as well is that you can not so much develop your own food style, but you can certainly develop what it is you want to sell. Not to give it any brand awareness, but just what you think perhaps from either an ecological point of view or from a sustainable point of view, if you're if you're selling a product that you believe in and you care about, you take care of, and you do all of your history and your legwork in sourcing it, I think that's very important. And I found that for me the biggest bonus of all. No longer looking at corporate purchasing and no longer looking at the bulk purchasing stratas that we all work on. So, which was fantastic for me, and hiring the type of staff that I wanted to work with, and not the type of staff a company would expect to work with. That was completely different. Taking time in recruitment, taking time in interviewing, all of that are the bonuses in owning your own business. The downside, of course, is that you're responsible for everything, so it doesn't come without a negative.
So why the sushi restaurant? Is that because you had a special love for that cuisine, or?
Absolutely nothing. No, absolutely nothing. I saw the potential. I suppose because Brighton was a satellite restaurant to the rest of the group, everything else was based in London. I could see the potential if you were an owner who ran it close at hand and took care of it close at hand. It wasn't in any way mismanaged, but it was a restaurant that had an outward look for perhaps looking more at people who are aficionados of sushi and Japanese cuisine. That sort of thing for me in Brighton in the long run doesn't work. I'm all about the populist and the popular eating. And I could see with some tweaks and a different approach to the food, or I don't know, giving people what they want to eat when it comes to Japanese food, I could see the potential for Brighton. And the owners didn't want to do anything like that with Brighton. So even when I was working for them, those suggestions were still on the table. And as I say, they snapped up the offer of selling it, and pretty much then I could change. We had very limited seating in the early days. There wasn't many tables. And yet there was no structure in the booking system. There was no structure in the reservation network, and that led to some serious issues regarding the food and food preparation, and they were never quite sure what the reservation footfall would be like over a period of a week, let alone a period of a month. We had a lot of things on the a lot of items on the menu in the beginning that were not really things that everyone was looking for. Some of the weirder and more wonderful Japanese dishes. And if you're selling food that maybe only 1 in 40 of your customers really appreciate, you have to do something with the menu, and you have to do something with the food. Not that it was bad food, it just didn't have the following for that type of cuisine. So it was pretty easy to, we went from having 30 people booked on a Saturday night to 125, 140, 150, and turning that over with walk-ins as well. So it made a big difference in what our offering was. And yet people who were loyal then are still loyal now. So, they've come on that journey with us, and they've seen what it is that we're trying to do. So
there's one thing I want to touch upon you said there before, was that what works, in general in the market, you cannot copy to every town. You need to understand the town and the demographic and what these type of customers, and we all know that Brighton is a special place when it comes to, they're very focused on supporting the independent, and they may be quite forward also when they want to try on food and things like that. And was that the kind of things you went in to do? And because often what I see sometimes is that people try to put things in a copy machine and do it across a market or a country or a region, and a menu maybe doesn't work in towns, and thereby, because you don't want to change that and don't take on the local needs from the customers, you're actually going to fail, or they're not going to support you because they're not going to get the food they want.
It's quite strange trying to explain Moshi as a business model. We've always been about something quite different. First of all, we're a really expensive operation. We have 3 kitchens, and we prep everything in-house. So it means basically that it's very labour intensive, which means that the labour bill is very, very high. We have thought over the years about changing that, but it's impossible, because if we still and always want to make our sushi by hand, no machines, no robots, no gadgets, that means you've got to have people rolling, you've got to have people making, you've got to have people cutting fish. They cut fish all day long. Then you have a hot kitchen, and the hot kitchen is preparing all the dishes that people crave, tempura and teriyaki and katsu and all of these things. And then behind that you have a big preparation kitchen as well. And we could have changed what our offering was and pared everything down to having one kitchen. But we genuinely have always thought from the beginning, okay, we're giving people what they want to eat. And if we're successful at doing that, it's better to be more labour intensive. It's better to spend more money in labour than just try to cut a percentage payment. It would really affect what our offering is. And I think that's why the loyalty we've had with our Brighton customers has always been quite strong, because we've never done much really to change our identity. They've always wanted an independent restaurant. They've always wanted a menu that we can be flexi with, that we can change dishes. We have a lot of people who come in who want this more spicy or this with more of a sauce, or we don't have chefs who cook by numbers. We have chefs who cook by hand and feel and weight. I can't remember the last time I saw a spec sheet in the kitchen. We just don't use them. We have a really high retention level, so we're not very often looking for chefs. And when we do have a new chef, he's taught on the line by whoever's been making that dish, for a period of time. So, which is fun, because sometimes in the beginning a new chef, it's a bit ropey, and suddenly the yakitori is a different size, or this has a stronger batter, or they're heavy-handed with the pickle, and then they get into their flow, and it works. So I think we've just always wanted to keep our identity as a local restaurant with a good local following. We don't chase the tourists. We're always chasing footfall. Everyone wants their restaurant to be busier, and we do little bits here and there to make sure that we maintain a presence and people are involved in the city. But we are always going to be looking for the people who come in once a week. We get people who come in twice a week, 3 times a week, which is a really good shot at the demographic. If you've got a customer who's coming into your restaurant more than 4 times a month, I like to think that's a nod to us doing it well. And that has its flip sides, because if we suddenly change anything, the avalanche to change it's extraordinary. And our customers spot it. We tried changing one of our soy sauce brands last year, and we truthfully believed it was just as good a brand and just as famous, and we were slightly dubious. It was a bit darker and maybe a little bit saltier, but we were taste testing all the time, and we didn't, and it had less sodium, and we thought, okay, this will be good. And in the first 4 days, every customer's like, your soy sauce is different, what's happening? It's like, so it's good having such a local and loyal base that they notice even the soy sauce changing. So it works for us.
That's what you call very fast feedback, where you have to acknowledge that. And did you go back to the old soy?
Yeah, eventually we did. We just talked to everyone the same as we do with anything we do at Moshi. We have a really big membership, and we have a lot of. And again, this goes back to the very beginning. Moshimo didn't open on Mondays, never opened on Mondays. And it had an idea of itself that it was part of that elite restaurant trading background where, perhaps things weren't available on a Monday and so on. But things have moved on. Fishermen fish at weekends. Yeah. Fish move around the country at weekends. You can get what you need fresh on a Monday. You don't need to wait till the market's open on Tuesday. It's now there, it's now available. And that's how we started our membership scheme, really, to see what could we do that was different with Mondays. What would make people come out on a Monday? What sort of enticement was it? And we started the Moshimo membership, which is huge, and locally it's pretty famous. And we managed to fill the restaurant every single Monday, with queues outside. And it's one of those things that's led by numbers. If we're busy enough, it's fine. It covers costs and everything else. If we have if we have hurricane weather and no one can come out for that night, it's a little bit, it becomes a bit ropey figures wise. It was so popular in the first 3 years that we started looking at the queues and feeling, okay, it's slightly embarrassing. We're going to have to close the membership. We can't have people standing outside with brollies in the winter because they're waiting to get in. And one of the waiters said, well, why don't we do Tuesdays too? So we split the membership over the 2 days. It works fantastic for the business because it means Mondays and Tuesdays have a really good footfall. People who can't get out over the weekend because maybe they work in our industry, people who perhaps can only normally catch up, because going to Moshi on a Monday, we see it's a huge social event. It's not people who are coming in because they've got a membership so they'll get a discount on the food. It's people coming in every Monday and sometimes Tuesday, dining with friends, different friends, different table collaborations, and we've always seen that happening. And these are the people who perhaps couldn't catch up with friends on Friday and Saturday. They're not there for the social night out of getting drunk and finishing the night off dancing somewhere. They're there just to have a meal and catch up with people. So it's always worked really, really well. And we've had issues with the membership because it's really only has one rule. You have to have the card. We have endless discussions about people who haven't got their card and don't know what they've done with their card and lost their card, and so over the years it's been a big education process for everyone concerned. And then the Tuesday worked as an overflow of that, and the Tuesday almost has its own clientele again who are doing that whole let's go and grab something to eat, catch up, and that sort of stuff. So it works incredibly well, and we're driven by the membership feedback, so we are constantly asking. And this is why we don't, we do seasonal menus, but we don't change the core dishes that often, because the feedback is always, I want this, I want that, I want this, I want that, and we keep the top sellers on the menu all the time, and it's what people want. So Monday maybe also could be the hangover cure day. Maybe on the Monday when people are coming in who want chicken katsu and all of that sort of stuff, it's to recover. Maybe it's a recovery meal. I don't know.
So the membership, in a way, you created your own little community. How do you get that feedback? Because that must be so valuable that you have people that comes often on these days and give you feedback on the menu. Is that like a survey, or is that what you pick up between the staff in the restaurant and then you feed it back through the team?
I think from the beginning, when we started the membership, we never charged for the membership card. It was just a card. You had to sign up to the card, and that gave you a discount. Fishlove came after the membership, so then we were trying to fund Fishlove, and we weren't sure how we were going to do it. So charging for the membership card, which originally 9 years ago was, I think originally it was £10 when we started. Nobody flinched, everyone was happy with that. It meant we could spend the income from the membership cards on promoting Fishlove and continue with Fishlove, which was fantastic because we were so passionate about what we were doing. And it was difficult getting support. We got attacked quite a lot because people didn't understand what it was we were doing. People, and even today, people think that we're saying don't fish, and it's got nothing to do with fish, it's to do with overfishing. I think after the Tuesdays too, we increased the cost of the membership, but we made sure that everybody understood that the membership was theirs. They control it by having the card. They control it by turning up, and they control it by feeding back to us what they want to see on the menu. How they, we've changed the look of our menu 3 times in about 9 years or more. Not the content, but the look. We used to have a little card that had too many pages. We had a big card that everyone thought was too big, but we were trying to make it easy to read. We've condensed it down to I think about 7 or 8 pages of A5, and in there we talk about the membership, and we talk about how important it is to have feedback. So what we do is we take a slice of our membership demographic probably every quarter. We email direct, not an email cascade, but we email direct and ask specific questions. Do you enjoy this dish? Do you enjoy that dish? Do you come in for a particular dish? Would you like to see, we just chopped our wine menu in half. We regularly had a wine menu that really was just too big because we're not drink led. We're very much food and healthy eating led. So whereas there's always the call for a bottle of wine, there wasn't really a call for 10 offerings on the red and 6 on the rosé and 15 on the white. So we just cut it down really, really small. And that was all from customer feedback. Customers were saying that we'd be happy just always drinking your house wine because it's good. We're not bothered if there's another option or not. So that was very, very good. Really, really good. There are some things that we're ashamed of, dare I say it. We're the kind of people who wouldn't like to sell something like the Coca-Cola brand, but the call for it is huge. And, again, that was something we put out to our customers and said, could you live without Coke? And basically our customers said no. So we make our own lemonade in-house now. All of that is done. We've tried to remove all the soft drinks and all the sugary soft drinks, but again, all membership led. It was feedback to us what you want and how you'd like to see it. And in most instances it worked well for the restaurant, well for the business, and great for the customer. So yeah, we are driven by our customers, what they want, what they're looking for. It works well.
Taking over the restaurant, I guess, back in 2008.
7,
yeah. And then moving into the recession,
yeah,
I guess, at some point, and then still be here. There must be many things you got right on that journey, because we are in a similar situation right now. We come back to in a moment. But what is it that you think is the top 3 things that you get right? Because you don't make a lot of changes when it comes to the customer facing, as I can understand. You listen a lot to the customers, but don't make many changes, only the changes they shout about.
Yeah.
What is it that you internally get right to continue almost being a bit like recession proof, if you can say that?
I think, again, there is a different situation when you're corporate. The savings that have to be made when you're corporate are enormous. I mean, they are absolutely enormous. I come from that corporate restaurant world where, you'd see a pizza chain that would go down to 1 manager and 1 waiter and 1 chef per shift, regardless of how busy those outlets are. They could have 200 diners in that night. They could have 30 diners in that night. But the only way that they can see as controlling the bottom line is to cut staff workforce or to reduce the product level. And I think partly maybe through some laziness of my own, but I think we were quite adamant during that recession that we weren't going to suddenly start firing everyone. Year on year we've hired more staff and our workforce has gone up. A small restaurant with 36 full-time staff, it's quite a lot, and our wage bill is huge. So we've tried not to let things be affected by the workforce, which rankles, because if you have a really busy night and you might, like everywhere, like any office, if you've got 1 person with flu, you'll end up with 4 people off with flu. And that always brings me to my favorite subjects of reviews. So you have that busy night with 3 people off with flu, and you get attacked because people have waited 10 minutes for a drink, and you think, yeah, you're not quite getting what we're doing here. This has happened to you once, but you could go into any restaurant in the high street and wait 45 minutes for your drink every time and 55 minutes for your food every time because there's no work first to do it with. So I think that was a big decision that we made, that we wouldn't try to save money on the bottom line by having less staff. Probably our second compromise was that we'd never go looking for the cheap food. We didn't do it then and we don't do it now. Some things got out of hand during the recession, and you know, people in the industry see it and they know what's going on. You know, a huge chain of Asian style cuisine, you know, throughout the recession they stopped selling katsu prawns. They just took it off the menu because the price went up so high. They couldn't fix the volume price that they wanted, so they just removed it from the menu. Luckily, thankfully, we never got into that arena. We reduced how much we were spending on tuna by just not having it available all the time. You know, it was outpricing itself as something you could sell, and we've always been aware of our selling cost. You know, there's only so much we can charge for some sashimi or some sushi. So we were very, very careful about what we were paying for our product, and we just made sure, as always, but perhaps stricter, we made sure we had no wastage and so on. And then probably thirdly, we just managed, you know, this expression, cutting your cloth to suit. That's what we did. We just stopped the spend. If we were running out of water jugs, rather than go and buy the really expensive water jugs we were using, we nipped off somewhere and bought some really cheaper versions. We stopped using really expensive napkins. You know, my pet issue is napkins and non-consumables. People, and that's natural again to our industry. You know, if you're working for a big corporation, whoever orders non-consumables in the store, they're given a budget that they have to hit, because, you know, the bottom line knows that you're going to overspend on non-consumables. And that's different with a small independent, because, you know, people just see boxes of napkins arriving. They have no idea of how much the napkin costs. And when they scoop napkins off of a table and think, oh, I'm not going to bother with that clean one that wasn't used by anyone, I'll just bin that one as well. You know, it's a lot of money. So we changed things like that. We used a cheaper version of a napkin through the recession, and when things got better, we actually went over. I personally prefer having linen napkins for our customers, and in that true Moshimo style, our customers didn't notice. So it was obviously personal to me. You know, they truly were not bothered whether they had a linen napkin or a paper napkin. And that search is a thing we do all the time. I'm constantly looking for good quality paper napkin that can be easily recycled, and, you know, and doesn't come at some huge price. But, you know, as you know, that's all those holy grails are constantly there. It's all you do all the time. So I think overall we just simply took care of what we were spending in-house, took care of what the staff were looking for, what they wanted. You know, you can have someone who's working 45 hours who actually only wants to work 35 and has not told anyone. And you think, okay, so, you know, there's a saving in hours there, because we're filling up the rota because our anticipation or our belief is this is what. So, you know, you go back to writing rotas correctly. It just means you don't have any wasted hours. You know, you can tag hours in. You can use, I can't bear those rota writing algorithm things, but, you know, a common sense rota stops you overspending, because if anyone can sneak off for a fag and a chat on their mobile, then the rota's heavy. You don't need them there. So, you know, you have to approach those sort of obvious savings.
Still being around, being very successful, you also been out on other adventures. You mentioned Fishlove before. So for people listening in, can you just explain in a short version of what is Fishlove and what is the mission, and who is involved and where you're going?
So Fishlove is a campaign to stop overfishing. From the very beginning, we've had massive support from the EU Parliament, we've had support from the UN, the Canadians, the Americans, Norway, you name it. We approached initially Greta Scacchi, who is an Oscar-winning actress and also a friend of my business partner. We asked her, would she be prepared to, take off her clothes and pose naked. There was a campaign just starting at that point, and we said, we can get this in the Guardian. We really need people to start thinking about overfishing, and all of this stems back to the bluefin tuna that was. And now it's just been massacred. At one point, I think it's already once been likened to the white rhino. It's just absolutely been decimated. Anyway, she agreed, and she whipped off her clothes, and it was picked up throughout the world. It was New York Times front page. It was absolutely everywhere. Greta has said often she received more publicity and more headline from that one shot than winning her Oscar, than anything else that had happened in her life. It was just extraordinary. And to be honest with you, we weren't going to continue with the campaign. That was it. We were telling people, and there was a book and a film that came out at the time called Enter the Line, which Charles Clover was behind, and Charles wanted some sort of launch for this film, and he needed some headlines, even though he was a writer himself, and we got together an entire group of people. Vivienne Westwood, everyone was involved in the launch of the film, and then people started saying, well, I'm prepared also to take this picture, and more everyone from Mariella Frostrup to Jerry Hall to everyone suddenly, the editor of the Sunday Times, Eleanor Mills, there's a very famous shot of her. So everyone was keen to be involved on the right level. They were high enough profile enough for them to want to be involved, not for self-promotion. They wanted to be involved. So we did the first series with Rankin, which was a phenomenon, and again it got worldwide press, and subsequently with incredibly famous John Swannell and Alan Gelati and Gillian Endelstein. We've used all these really famous photographers who've given up their time for free, and anyone we've approached, everyone from Ian McKellen, Michael Gambon, everybody has been involved and thoroughly been supportive. What is hard is to get over the message, and it's really, really difficult. If you, for example, if you're invited into the European Parliament and they use the main chamber of the Parliament, which they've never used for anything like this before, and literally put every Fishlove photograph up on the walls, and they insisted that every MEP, and at that time Maria Damanaki was the fisheries minister, and she was really going for it, and everyone got the message, and everyone was really behind it, and everyone started cascading it. But you move from that to now, and you still have to explain to people that this isn't a sushi restaurant telling people don't eat fish. It's just telling people that there is a huge risk to our oceans. There is a huge risk at what's coming within the next, we were originally talking about 50 years. Now we're talking about in the next 15 to 20 years. These huge companies have moved on from Europe. They're now raping their way through the South China Seas, the Pacific, and everywhere else. They're out there catching whatever they can in these quantities that I love it when we teach these classes with children, and we explain to them that imagine a net that is so big that you can put jumbo jets inside that net. That's the size of these nets. And that's the hard thing, is making people understand that, okay, don't take the image on this face value as a naked person holding a fish. Look behind what's happening, and that is our biggest fight. It's making people understand that this campaign is an environmental campaign. It's not about you know, we're not telling everyone, oh, go to this supermarket or go to that supermarket or buy your fish this way or buy your fish that way, but just to be aware and, you know, sign petitions and try and change things. But it's been recognised as the biggest influence in the world on this subject. So that's incredible for a Brighton restaurant that's tucked in the lanes in Brighton, whilst operating on a normal, you know, with all the things that come with it. You know, someone forgot to order onions, we've run out of ice, and someone's turned up or phoned up sick. You know, we're not demented in that approach to what we do. I think that's why we managed to balance it out and get things done. You know, my business partner concentrates a lot on Fishlove, and I concentrate a lot on the business. So it balances itself out.
So where do you think Fishlove is in 5 years' time? Because it's a very important course, and we all know that it's very important to eat, you know, local fish.
We keep saying it's the last year. We're not doing it again, and then, you know, particularly this year, the Danish politicians came to see us and said, look, you know, we really want to do something. We'd love a Danish series, and at the same time, the Germans. They were talking about the same thing. So, you know, currently, literally yesterday and today, the images are on these incredible moving billboards, which, you know, they were all over Denmark yesterday, being rolled around, and incredible response from, you know, the Danes, just absolutely incredible. Same thing happens next week with Berlin. Luckily for us, we don't have to do anything with that side of the operation. You know, we create the images, we find the people who want to take part. You know, Sean Penn in Malibu has just done it, and Paris Jackson and Josh Brolin, and, you know, really high profile celebrities, I suppose, you know, seriously involved. We do all of that, and then, for example, with the Danish, Our Fish, which is an incredible organisation, they're the ones who are spearheading the campaign there, so they're using the images for that. I think if we can keep that type of relationship where we're producing, we're doing, we're finding, we're promoting, without having to do those huge bodies of, you know, work across Europe, then it's fine for us. We can continue with it. But the worry for us is if governments and politicians and MEPs and MPs don't get behind what's happening, it will have all been for a waste of time. It really will have been, because the situation on fishing quotas and overfishing is probably at its worst now, and it's going to get worse. So yeah, as I say, you know, we've probably got less than five or 8 years to really, you know, to really nail this. 2020 is supposed to be the tipping point, and everything's supposed to change. So I think we'll keep going for as long as we can be involved, really. But it costs money, and it all comes out of Moshimo. So unless, you know, sometimes we do have people who want to sponsor, and that's fantastic. But the rest of the time, we foot the bill.
Yeah, and I guess if there's anybody out there listening to the podcast, they're welcome to reach out to
Absolutely. Oh my goodness.
They want to be involved in any kind of way.
Absolutely. We have no preciousness about Fishlove. You know, when a series has been done exclusively by us, it's been everywhere. It's been in museums, it's been in galleries. It's, you know, we have no pressures. As long as it's used for the cause, then absolutely fine. You know, we have to be. A funny anecdote is in Kiev. Somebody sent us a photograph saying, "Oh, look at your Fishlove pictures," and you know, a famous singer and the son of a famous French singer, Thomas Dutronc. He was split screened on the doors to this supermarket, and then every single person who'd been in that particular series, which was the French photographer we were working with, every single picture that Denis Rouve had taken had been put around every single window of this huge supermarket in the middle of Kiev. But it was not like they were poster sized. They'd somehow been digitally enhanced, I think by 8 by 17 meters. I mean, they were just ginormous. and they just thought they'd lift them and use them, for nothing other than they thought they were nice pictures, and we'll stick them, all around this supermarket. And in the end, through a lot of skullduggery and contacting, we managed to get the mayor of Kiev to request this supermarket take them down, because they could have put them up with the Fishlove logo and all the information about Fishlove as well, and we wouldn't have cared. But it's the fact that they just went ahead and thought, we'll plaster our building in these images. So yeah, we're not precious about it. We'll keep working with people who want to be involved and who really support what's happening. So
it's more important than ever that you use this, restaurant you have as a megaphone for change and impact as well. And I guess if you can help educate people, which is a lot about, I can hear, we can slightly change the world with our food dollars, as I call it.
We've got all of that in our menu. I mean, it's in our menu, it's on our websites, it's everywhere. We do, we are strange. People in the city who know us say, oh my God, you guys are everywhere. And we are, but for different reasons. We don't spend money on marketing or big ad campaigns or anything else. But we do a lot within the city that takes us through the city. We do... every year we have 3 schools that we do environmental classes with, year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4, and we'll see each school all the way through. So let's say through 2 terms, and Tuesdays and Fridays we have school children in the morning, and they do all sorts of things. They learn how to make sushi, they learn about how we source our fish and the origins of our fish and why it's important to ask those questions. And we do stuff at the universities, we do stuff with various local campaign groups who want to be involved in sustainable food. We've always been about restorative eating and sustainable food. That message is always going to be there. Our customers get that. It's difficult for a lot of people, especially the award. When we got an award from PETA, people were like, this is mind-boggling. They sell fish, they sell meat, they sell lamb, they sell chicken, How is it possible they got an award from PETA? And it's what people don't see in the background of the forward-facing restaurant is how much work we're doing on restorative eating and restorative foods, how much work we're doing to educate and to train local farmers. We don't stay loyal, particularly with anyone. We move seasonally and so on, and depending what we can get. But we've worked in educating local farmers and local fishermen and people around the English coastline. We've worked with an awful lot of fishermen. So I think doing all of that keeps our message going without it being, we're never going to be militant. We launched a Vegan Wednesday offer because we've always had a lot of vegan food on our menu. I come from a household of vegans. I'm the only one who eats fish. That conscious effort to have some vegan choices, we stepped it up. We took some stuff out. We reduced the meat. We reduced the fish. We added more vegetable dishes, or made vegetable choice more available on some of the dishes. And it's really worked. People really like it. People appreciate it. It means you don't have that whole split family dining. You've got 6 people now around the table, gluten-free, vegan, vegetarian, people who are pescatarians. There's the thing there for everyone. And that just works in balancing out our menu. It's a no-brain situation with that. It's like we can just do that. It's easy to do, and I think we'll keep going in that direction. I think we're always going to be heading to fish just being so expensive that we can't sell it. That's our fear, but we believe that's where we will end up. And hey, we've got a conveyor belt that goes around our restaurant. We can put anything on it. No one's saying it has to be fish. We can do that. We can do a minimum offering, and we'll see where we end up. But if fish starts to be too expensive to sell or beyond reason, then I think we probably will go completely veggie vegan. I think eventually, I think that's always going to happen, because we can't see any end in sight for this.
That's all we have time for today. Thank you, Karl, for sharing Moshimo's story and your thoughts regarding today's hospitality sectors and the challenge you amongst many other operators are facing. If you enjoyed today's podcast, please give us a like, share, or even better, tell us what you think. Does your business have a plan for becoming more sustainable? Tune in 2 weeks' time to listen to more nuggets from Karl Jones. In the meantime, thank you for listening and be Maverick.